Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we'll be discussing question number 16 to question number 30 of the same DPP1. Right, coming to the 16th question. Here we have two charges, each of 50 coulomb, positive charges fixed at minus 3, 0 and 3, 0 on the x-axis as shown here. Okay, and the negative charge is released on the y-axis. Okay, as shown. Okay, it is not just released; it is given some velocity also. Okay, what we have to do is we have to, it is not just released, it is also given some velocity in the y direction as shown, right? What we have to do is find where it will go and stop, right? This is basically conservation of energy question. We know that it will go further down once it will reach 0 comma minus 4 with the same speed. It will reach further down, right? We have to find till where it will reach, right? So simple and total energy conservation, kinetic plus potential equal to constant initial kinetic plus potential equal to final kinetic plus potential. Okay, final potential will be something like this, right? If this length is y, potential energy, this length is 3 now, so this r will be under root y square plus 3 square. That is what they have taken here, and this is like a very basic question. Okay, moving on to the next question, 17th. Okay, in this question, orbital velocity of the satellite is given as v when the radius is r, right? So what we have, v is equal to under root gm by r. Okay, from this, as seen in the options, there is no gm, right? From this we can find what is gm equal to. Gm will be equal to v square into r. Okay, now what he is saying, it collides with another body in the orbit and comes to rest. Okay, once it comes to rest, it will directly fall to the earth's surface. Okay, you have to find with what speed it will fall. Okay, once it has come to rest, what energy is there? There is only potential energy, right? So minus gmm by r is equal to, when it comes to the surface, it is minus gmm by r plus half mv square. That's it. From this we find this v dash. Okay, and we will substitute gm as v square by r. We'll get this answer, right? Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, here we have a solid spherical planet whose mass is 2m. Okay, and another particle whose mass is m. That solid planet has some cylindrical region, very thin region, where that hole is made. Okay, and both bodies are released, both attract each other. See, okay, if both masses were m, both would have moved equal distance, right? Clearly, what will happen here? Take it 2m, we can take it at its center, and m we have here. Now, distance between them is 2r. Right, so 2m will move this side, m will move this side. We have all these relations, right? m1 r1 equal to m2 r2. Center of mass question. Now we also have m1 v1 equal to m2 v2. Okay, we also have r1 plus r2. When it reaches its center, r1 plus r2 equal to 2r. Okay, what we have to find, displacement of the cosmic particle, right? So we have to find r2. We'll get r2 as 4r by 3. Okay, when it reaches the center, what is the acceleration? When it reaches the center, what is the field? Field at the center of a solid sphere is 0. So there is no force between them, so acceleration will be 0. Okay, from this thing and conservation of total energy, we'll get the velocity of that particle as this. What we'll have is, we have this relation. We also have, what is the initial potential energy? Minus g 2m into m upon 2r plus kinetic is 0 equal to, when it reaches the center, what is the potential? The potential at the center is minus 3 by 2 g 2m upon its radius r, right, plus half m1 v1 square plus half m2 v2 square, right? From this we will solve whatever velocity is necessary. Okay, and d bit, what is the total work done by gravitational force? This cannot be true because gravitational force will do positive work on the both bodies. It cannot be negative, right? That's it. Moving on to the next question, 19th question. Okay, here we have two blocks A and B. A is connected to spring. Okay, and that second block B, it is fixed. Okay, now block A can move. Forces acting on it will be spring force and electrostatic force between them. Okay, now the initial equilibrium situation will not be at position x naught, yeah, extension x naught equal to 0, it will be at some x naught, right? It will be at some compression x naught, in fact, right? Because there is repulsion between these two. Okay, it will be at some extension x naught because there is attraction between these two, right? Say extension is x naught, we have force, balancing force k x naught is equal to k q1 q2 by r square, right? That is the first equation. Okay, now when we further displace it from x naught, the net extension will become k x naught minus x. What will happen to the electrostatic force? It will further increase, right? The attraction will further increase. It will become k q1 q2 by r minus x ka whole square. Okay, this is the net force on the body. It is also given that x is very small compared to r. Okay, so using binomial expansion we get something like this. This is the resultant force on it. This force is directly proportional to x, so we have an SHM, right? So what will the time period be? We'll get force is equal to kx, acceleration is equal to kx by m. This term will be omega square, time period will be 2 pi by omega, right? That's it. And obviously denominator should be greater than 0. From that we can get the minimum value of k also. It cannot be equal to, it should be just greater than that value. They have taken it equal to. Okay, coming to question number 20. Okay, this question is an important question. It is a standard question where we have variable refractive index. Okay, there are two sets of problems: variable refractive index in x direction, variable refractive index in y direction. Okay, here we have a question in which we have variable refractive index in x direction, right? That is, different layers have different refractive index. Okay, so our normal will be in which direction? Okay, our normal will be along the x direction, right? Exactly. Okay, so when the ray moves in, initial angle of incidence, right, that is 30 degrees, it we have taken at some particular point x comma y, the angle made is I, right? Using Snell's law we have 1 sine 30 is equal to refractive index at that point sin I. From this we will get sin I. Using this sin I we are finding tan I. Okay, now what is tan I equal to? Clearly from that particular triangle, tan I is nothing but equal to dy by dx, right? So we will take dy by dx is equal to tan I equal to this value, right? Here we will substitute the value of n, refractive index n as a function of x is given. We will substitute this value there, n naught value is 1. From that, when we integrate, one point we already have as origin, right? 0 comma origin. So our lower limit will be, for y it will be 0 comma y, for x it will be 0 comma x, right? And when we substitute the value of x equal to 1 in that particular equation, we'll get the value of y where that particular ray will be coming out. Okay, same problem if refractive index, okay, everybody listen to this properly. If refractive index is a function of y, okay, and the ray is say entering something like this and moving something like this, okay, when it is a function of y, different layers of y have different refractive index, right? So normal will be in y direction only. Different layers along x have different so here what will happen? This will not be our normal. So here what will happen? This will be our normal, right, at some particular point, right? So here this is the normal, this is the initial angle of incidence, this is I at any particular point. Okay, slope at there will not be tan I, slope will be equal to tan 90 minus I. Okay, that is cot I equal to dy by dx. Okay, how will we find cot I? By using Snell's law, we'll first find sin I. From that, we'll get this cot I and substitute. We'll integrate. We'll get whatever the equation is necessary. Okay, coming to the next question, 21st. It is a very simple electrostatic question based on Gauss law. A particle Q is placed along the diameter AP. Okay, it is not placed at the midpoint. It is placed nearer to that vertex A. Okay, and little bit farther from the vertex P. Okay, what we have to find? We have to find flux through each surface. Okay, we can't find flux through each surface. We have some relations here which we have to check. Right, we have some relations here which we have to check. Okay, first of all, for this particular position, what is the total flux? That will obviously be equal to Q by epsilon naught. Okay, now here see, for this particular position is the face ABCD, ABSR and ADRQ. These three are symmetrical, right? So say flux through each is x, total flux through those three will be 3x. Similarly, the faces RSPQ, the face DCPQ and the face BCPS are also symmetrical. Say flux through each is y, total flux will be 3x plus 3y. 3x plus 3y equal to q by epsilon naught. X plus y will be q by 3 epsilon naught. Okay, first bit is flux through ABCD and PQRS. Okay, ABCD is we have taken x, PQRS is we have taken y. So that flux will obviously be q by 3 epsilon naught. First bit is correct. Okay, the sum of electric flux passing through surface ABCD and PQRS, obviously this is wrong. The flux through surfaces ABCD and PQRS is same. Obviously this is wrong because flux through ABCD will be more than flux through PQRS. So we can say something like this, that flux through ABCD will be greater than q by 6 epsilon naught and flux through the other surface PQRS will be less than q by 6 epsilon naught. Okay, that's it. Okay, moving to the next question, 22nd question. Here we have two infinite parallel conducting sheets, non-conducting sheets, each having sigma. Okay, we know that electric field due to non-conducting sheet is sigma by 2 epsilon naught. Okay, so one sheet is passing through origin and the next sheet is at some particular value of x given x equal to a. Okay, we have two sheets. Okay, it is also given that potential at origin is equal to 0. Now we have to find potential at any particular point x. Okay, what is the potential between 0 to x? There is no electric field in this region, right? Because due to the first sheet it is right side, due to the second sheet it is left side. Net field between the sheets is 0. So no change in potential. So from point x equal to 0 to point x equal to a, in this whole region potential is 0 only. Right, now when we cross x equal to a, both fields are in positive direction. Right, net field will become equal to sigma by 2 epsilon naught plus sigma by 2 epsilon naught. Right, electric field due to a sheet is sigma by 2 epsilon naught. So net field will be equal to sigma by epsilon naught. Okay, but the coordinate will be from origin, right? So how much distance have we moved in this direction? This length will be equal to x minus a. Right, so the change in potential will be sigma by epsilon naught into x minus a, and negative of that because in the direction of electric field potential decreases. Similarly, on the other side, when value of x is negative, the potential will be equal to sigma by epsilon naught into directly x coordinate here, right? That will also be negative because field is in this direction. The x coordinate is taking care of the negative value, right? So options correct are A and D. Okay, moving on to the next question, 23rd question. Again, this is also a standard question. We have a hemispherical shell, hollow shell, hemisphere of radius r. There is some mass distribution, or you may also have some kind of charge distribution, and different points are marked A, C, D and D. We have to compare potential at different points. Okay, at point C definitely potential will be minus gm by r because whole mass is at the same distance r, right? Okay, now we'll see that at points C and D, in fact that whole diametrical plane potential will be same, it is equal to minus gm by r. Okay, only in that diametrical plane, because suppose we have in this diagram, right, suppose we consider another hemispherical shell, we have this complete shell. Okay, now due to this complete shell, what is the value of electric field inside a shell? It is 0, right? So now what we have is we have some kind of these two hemispherical shells, right? At this particular point, say field due to the upper shell is downward and right side. Okay, field due to lower shell will be upwards and also right side, right? So this will not become equal to 0, right? This upward and downward part will get cancelled, but this is remaining. Okay, so neither of the shells will have a component along this diametrical plane, right? So this we will not have. Okay, so electric field due to a hemispherical shell in the diametrical plane can only be in perpendicular direction, right? Either upward or downward. Now depending on whether we have charge or mass. For mass it will be upward, for charge, positive charge, it will be away, right, downward direction. Okay, anyway, so when we move in this diametrical plane, is this field not becoming perpendicular to that plane? It is becoming perpendicular to that plane. Okay, along a direction perpendicular to electric field, potential does not change, right? The potential at C and potential at D is equal to minus Gm by R. Okay, potential at B again we'll find because of using this symmetrical approach. Here we can find potential because of these two masses, and half of that will give potential at B. That is what they have done, right? Again a very basic question. Okay, 24th, moving on to integer questions. 24th, again we have a very basic question here. We have a uniformly charged solid sphere and there is a cavity inside it, right? So inside a cavity we have already seen that the field is constant. Suppose we have a solid sphere and we have a cavity. Okay, the field is along the direction of center joining these two, na, O dash. Okay, and the field will be equal to sigma by 3 epsilon naught into R bar or A bar, that is the vector joining these 2 points. Okay, this is a charge, we have it in R bar. If the same thing was gravitation, we will have to take it in the opposite direction. Anyway, so we have this field, right? It is in the direction of O dash or along A bar as from the diagram, right? Now when an electron is released at some particular point, it will directly go in this direction, right? So all we have to do is find this displacement, then we'll use displacement is equal to half a t square, right? That's what they have done. Okay, displacement will be root 2r, half a field into charge, na, magnitude of field into charge will be force, by mass will be acceleration into t square. From this they are finding t square. Okay, that's it. Moving on to the next question, 25th question. Okay, we have already seen the first part. We have elliptical orbits. All we need to do is one here, even though it's not applicable, one we will do conservation of energy, we will do conservation of angular momentum. There is also conservation of angular momentum will also be equal to conservation of angular momentum is nothing but the Kepler's law, which shows that areal velocity d area by dt is equal to constant. Okay, d area by dt will always be equal to half Vr sine theta. At apogee or perigee it will become equal to half Vr. Okay, dA by dt, that is what they have used. Okay, from here it is given that the aerial velocity is given as 4.4 into 10 power 16. Okay, at the near point where sine theta is 1. Okay, so what is V1 R1 at that particular point? 2 into dA by dt, which will become 8.8 into 10 power 16, right? 8 power 8 into 10 power 16. Okay, also we have for nearest point and farthest point we have V1 R1 equal to V2 R2. V1 R1 we already have 8.8 into 10 power 16. We have to find V2. R2's value can be found by the given data. Okay, semi major axis is 2a. The 2a length will be 4 into 10 power 12. Of that, subtract this 1.8 into 10 power 12. We have 2.2 into 10 power 12. From this we'll get V2 as 8.8 by 2.2 is 4 into 10 power 4 meter per second, or that will be 40 kilometer per second, right? Okay. Okay, moving on to the next question, 26th question. In this question there is a slight problem with the diagram. The lens which is shown is not a thin lens. Okay, it is actually a complete sphere like structure. Okay, something like this. This is a complete hemisphere, right? And the ray given is at a distance of 6 centimeter. So definitely this is not a parallax ray, right? So the property of the refraction formula at a surface mu2 by v minus mu1 by u equal to mu2 minus mu1 by r, that will not be applicable, right? What we'll do in all such cases, we'll directly apply Snell's law, right? There is nothing else to do. Okay, when the ray is passing through this vertical surface, it will go straightly inside. It is meeting here at this particular point. This is angle of incidence, this is angle of refraction, right? We'll use angle of incidence is equal to angle of refraction. find r. From that r we are getting as 45 degrees. Then this particular angle na BAC will be equal to pi minus r. Then all we'll do is use sines rule, right? Sines rule, we will find the value of whatever is required. Okay, moving on to the next question. There is a satellite orbiting at particular height. Its acceleration is a1. Another rocket is fired. Its speed instantaneously becomes half, but position is same. Force will be same. Acceleration will be a2. Acceleration is given as a2. Okay. Now what we have is position is same, force is same. So will the acceleration change? Definitely it will not change. The ratio of accelerations will be 1. Okay, moving on to the next question, 28th question. Okay, we have a very large mass whose length itself is equal to r, right? So force on this we cannot take it as mg, because mg we can only use when the body is very near to the surface. Okay, this body is extending from surface to a distance equal to r. Okay, so what we have to do is integrate, right? How will we find force? Field into mass. Field will always be gm by r square into mass dm. Okay, and this dm will be equal to what? Total mass by total length r into dr. This we have to integrate from r to 2r. That's it. Very basic question. Okay, moving on to the next question. Optics integer type question. We have two persons. They are both wearing different lenses of powers p1 and p2, one diopter each. The glasses have refractive index of 1.5. Okay, then these distance between them we do not know, right? When these two persons jump into a swimming pool, okay, now because they are wearing different lenses, position of a, distance between a and b will appear different for each body. Okay, it is given that B appears to be present at 2 meters from A and A appears to be present at distance of 1 meter from A. Refractive index of the pool, right? The refractive index of water in that pool we have to find. Okay, it is something like this. Suppose A is here, A is wearing a lens, B is say here, B is also wearing one lens, right? We know that lens is convex as power is given positive. Okay, now suppose this distance is x. Okay, now this person is A, this person is B, right? Now what is given? For A, where does B appear? For A, B appears to be at a distance of 2 meters, right? Okay, before we do something like this, we have power is equal to 1 by focal length. Okay, that power is given in air, right? Not in this particular medium. Okay, in this particular medium, focal length will change, power will change. Okay, so this is the power of first lens 1 by f equal to 3 by 2 minus 1 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. Okay, from this we have this particular equation. Okay, when this lens is moved into that swimming pool, okay, what will happen to the new focal length? New focal length will be 1 by f1 dash is equal to mu 2 by mu 1, right? Mu 2 by mu 1, mu 1 is mu, now that is what we have to find, minus 1 into 1 by r1 minus 1 by r2. Substituting 1 by r1 and 1 by r2 from above, we have this equation. Okay, similarly doing the same thing for second lens, we have this equation. Okay, now we have got the focal length of each lens inside the medium. Okay, now look what we are doing. For A we have, this is A observer is here, body B is here, say this distance is x. Okay, and where is image formed? Image is formed at 2 meters, again in this direction only, right? So what we have here is distance of u, right, for the observer. Okay, object rays are traveling in this direction. Here u is negative and v is also negative, right? So we use the lens formula 1 by v minus 1 by u equal to 1 by f. 1 by f we have seen, 1 by f we are writing in terms of f1 and this mu value, right? And 1 by v is 2 meters, that is minus 200, right? We are keeping this in centimeter. Minus 1 by x, that distance is x, and that will be minus x equal to that focal length part. Okay, similarly doing the same thing for B. This is object position, A is the object position, right? There is observer B here. Okay, rays are traveling in this direction, position of object is negative, and where does A appear? A appears to be image position, right? Appears to be at 1 meter. Okay, so what is V equal to? V equal to minus 1 meter, that is minus 100 centimeter. U is equal to, again, what is this distance? We have taken that as x, right? U is equal to minus x. Again, using the lens maker's formula, 1 by V minus 1 by U equal to 1 by F. Okay, now dividing these two equations, we can clearly find the value of x. Substituting x back, we'll find the value of mu, which is equal to what is given, right? Okay, last question of this video, 30th question. Again, a very basic question. Okay, so we have an object, there is a lens of focal length 30 centimeters, and object position is 36 centimeters. First let us find the value of image position. Image position we get as 180 centimeter, right, and this length is 1 meter. Okay, so the image position is, this is a mirror, image position is 80 centimeters from the mirror as shown. Okay, image formed by the lens which acts as an object for this mirror, right? So where will this image be formed? Will join like this, right? The ray will go like this, angle is 45 degrees, so image will obviously get formed in this region. Okay, we know that line joining image and object is perpendicular to the mirror. Okay, so obviously if this is 80, what will the length of this be? This will also be 80 centimeter. Okay, but this is again going through another lens which is kept at 65. Okay, now what is happening? There is a there is a concave lens here, and that particular mirror was forming an image at 80 centimeters from above. Okay, and this distance is given as 65. So we have a virtual object again for this lens with object position as plus 15. Okay, using lens maker's formula, 1 by V minus 1 by U equal to 1 by F. We have 1 by V minus 1 by U. U we will take as minus 15 equal to 1 by F. We'll find the value of F. Then we'll again use lens maker's formula, right, and find the radius of curvature of that particular concave lens, right? Okay, see you in the next video.